Before we start, please make sure to like this video and hit this subscribe button so you never miss a story like this. And also comments where you are watching from, how many sons and daughters you have. Thanks.
My name is Evelyn Carter, and I never thought I'd live to see the day when my own daughter accused me of being a kidnapper. Before I begin, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, because what I'm about to share will shake you to your core. The manila envelope in my hands trembled, not from its weight, but from the truth it carried. For 15 years, my fingers had traced its edges during sleepless nights, wondering if I'd ever need to use it. And now, here I was, in a courtroom, my daughter sitting across from me, her expensive blazer as polished as the lies she had perfected. Melissa. Once, she was my baby girl, the one who used to crawl into my lap when thunderstorms rattled the house. Now she was 38, beautiful as ever, but behind her flawless makeup and high heels was a heart hardened by choices I still couldn't forgive. She had walked out on her 3 little boys 15 years ago. And today, she wanted them back. Your Honor, her lawyer said, his voice slick, smooth as silk over shattered glass. My client has been denied access to her own children for over a decade. She is requesting immediate custody and pursuing kidnapping charges against the defendant, her own mother. Kidnapping. The word tasted like rust in my mouth. I gripped the envelope tighter, pressing my lips together to stop the rush of anger. At 62, I knew that outbursts only weakened your position. Still, the ache in my lower back reminded me of nights spent on hospital chairs, rocking fevered boys who cried out for their mama, and the only answer they got was my whisper, "Grandma's here, baby. Grandma's here." Judge Harrison, a man with silver hair and the weariness of someone who'd seen every variety of human cruelty, leaned forward. "Mrs. Carter," he said slowly, "you've been caring for your grandsons since they were 3 years old. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Behind Melissa, I saw them, my boys. Ethan, Caleb, and Noah. 17 now, tall enough to tower over most men, but in my heart, they were still the toddlers who clung to my apron strings. Ethan's jaw was clenched in a way that reminded me of their late father. Caleb's hands were folded so tightly his knuckles turned white. And Noah, my sweet Noah, stared at the floor as if wishing he could disappear into the carpet. They didn't know about the envelope yet. They didn't know the truths it carried. The mother, the judge continued, had no contact during this time? She visited twice, I answered carefully. Once when they were 8, to ask for money. Once when they were 12, and she stayed 3 days before disappearing again. Melissa shifted in her chair. For the briefest second, I saw something flash across her face as fear, guilt, before she hid it behind her perfect mask. She had always been beautiful. That beauty fooled strangers, tricked them into believing her every story. But I had lived long enough to see through it. Her lawyer cleared his throat. Your Honor, my client suffered postpartum depression and severe addiction. She needed time to heal. That doesn't erase her parental rights. Postpartum depression. As if that explained 3 toddlers hoarding crackers under their beds because they didn't know if there would be food tomorrow. As if that explained the way they jumped at footsteps, hoping it was their mother returning, only to find silence. Mrs. Carter, Judge Harrison asked gently, do you have documentation of your guardianship? I drew in a slow breath. This was my moment. Rising carefully, my knees stiff from hours on the bench, I held up the manila envelope. I do, Your Honor, I said. But I'd like to present something else first. The courtroom grew so quiet I could hear the hum of the old radiator in the corner. I walked to the bench, Melissa's eyes burning into my back, and handed the envelope to Judge Harrison. He accepted it with a frown. What is this? Proof, I said simply. Proof of what a mother really is. He opened the envelope, and I watched his expression shift as he pulled out the first photograph. Ethan, 5 years old, grinning wide on his first day of kindergarten, a lunchbox clutched proudly in his hand. Caleb, 6, beaming as he held a blue ribbon from the science fair, his tears of joy staining the picture. Noah, 7, hugging me tight after finally riding his bike without training wheels. But it wasn't just photographs. Inside were 15 years of my life, report cards tucked into plastic sleeves, every note from teacher conferences, permission slips signed in my careful handwriting, medical forms listing me as the emergency contact. The judge examined them silently, his brow furrowing deeper with every page. Childhood memorabilia doesn't, Melissa's lawyer began. Sit down, Judge Harrison cut him off sharply, his voice laced with steel. How long did you compile this? He asked me. 15 years, Your Honor. Every school event, every Christmas when they asked why she didn't call. Every Father's Day when they made cards for my late husband instead, because they needed a father figure, and he was all they had until cancer took him 5 years ago. I heard one of my boys shift in the pew, but I didn't dare look back. My heart was already cracking, I couldn't bear to see their faces yet. The judge picked up a photograph I knew by heart, 3 little boys in matching pajamas, standing in front of our small Christmas tree. Their smiles glowed brighter than the lights on the branches. Where were you when this was taken? Judge Harrison asked Melissa. Her mask slipped. I was getting my life together, she stammered. I couldn't. You couldn't what? The judge interrupted, his voice low and dangerous. Send a Christmas card? Make a phone call? Melissa's hands trembled. For once, she had no answer. Mrs. Carter, Judge Harrison said, his voice gentler now, is there anything else in this envelope? Yes, Your Honor. Every school record, every medical authorization. Every place where a mother's name was required. He flipped through them. And your daughter's name appears how often? Never, I said firmly. Not once. The silence that followed was suffocating. Melissa's lawyer leaned toward her, whispering urgently, but she shook her head, her face pale. Finally, the judge placed the envelope down with deliberate care. His eyes rose to meet mine. Mrs. Carter, he asked, do your grandsons know what's inside this envelope? I hesitated. Then, with steady voice, I said, not yet. Because some truths are too heavy for children to carry. But they're old enough now. It's time they know. The judge nodded slowly. Then he looked at my boys. Ethan. Caleb. Noah, he said softly. Do you want to live with your mother? The air in the courtroom turned razor-sharp. Ethan, always the spokesman for his brothers, cleared his throat. His deep voice shook the silence. Your Honor, we don't really know her. Melissa flinched as if struck. But then Ethan said something that made my blood run cold. But we'd like the chance to try. When we left the courtroom that day, I felt like the ground had been pulled out from beneath me. 2 weeks. That was the deal. 2 weeks for Ethan, Caleb, and Noah to stay with Melissa, to reconnect with the woman who had given them life, but not love. 2 weeks that could undo 15 years of sleepless nights, scraped knees, homework battles, and Christmas mornings I had poured my soul into. 15 years of being mama grandma. I told myself to stay strong. But the truth? The thought of Melissa taking them felt like dying slowly. That evening, as I set down 3 mugs of hot chocolate, the ritual we'd kept every night since they were toddlers, their eyes followed me with something new in them. Not mistrust, not rejection, but questions I wasn't ready to answer. Grandma, Caleb said softly, his gentle nature always tuned into my emotions. You're shaking. I looked down at my hands. Sure enough, the ceramic cup rattled against the saucer. I forced a smile. I'm fine, sweetheart. No, you're not, Noah said bluntly, pushing his glasses up the bridge of his nose. You haven't been fine since court. I wanted to tell them I was terrified. That I'd already pictured every corner of our apartment echoing with their absence. But instead, I lied. Boys, I said carefully, settling into my armchair. Whatever you decide. I'll support you. The words tasted bitter. A lie born of love. Melissa had shown them pictures in court, her new house in Seattle, the one with the pool and big bedrooms. She'd promised them they could redecorate however they wanted. To 17-year-olds, it probably sounded like heaven. She said we'd have our own rooms, Noah said, his voice flat. She also has a boyfriend, Ethan added darkly. Some banker she's been with for 8 months. She thinks that makes her stable enough to uproot us. A boyfriend. 8 months. And she thought that equaled family. I nodded, keeping my face neutral while my heart crumbled. But then Ethan leaned forward, his dark eyes burning into mine. Why didn't you ever tell us, Grandma? He asked. About everything. About why she left. About what's in that envelope. The question pierced me. Because children shouldn't have to carry their parents' failures. Because I wanted them to see their mother without the weight of my judgment. Because I thought I was protecting them. But they weren't children anymore. They were young men. And they deserved the truth. I went to the kitchen table where the envelope still sat, heavy as a tombstone, and pulled out a separate folder I'd never shown them. Legal documents I had received just last month. When I returned, the room seemed smaller, the air tighter. Your mother, I began, filed paperwork to have me declared an unfit guardian 6 months ago. The boys stiffened. She waited to serve it until now. Do you know why? Caleb's eyes widened first. He was quick, analytical like his father. The life insurance, he whispered. I nodded. Slowly. Your father had a policy. A substantial one. It releases when you turn 18. 3 months from now. And Melissa is still listed as your legal guardian. The silence was deafening. She only came back for the money, Noah said flatly. We can't be certain, I began. Yes, we can. Ethan's voice was sharp, his anger barely contained. The timing isn't a coincidence. She never wanted us back, Grandma. She wants the payout. The betrayal hit them like a physical blow. I watched as childhood hope drained from their faces, replaced by something colder, harder. It was like watching them age years in minutes. Caleb's hands trembled. Noah's lips pressed into a thin line. And Ethan. Ethan's jaw clenched until I thought it might break. Finally, he exploded. Stop protecting her, Grandma, he shouted, standing so fast his chair clattered against the wall. Stop protecting us. We're not babies anymore, we can handle the truth. I flinched, but he was right. I had spent so long shielding them from Rachel's abandonment that I forgot they were strong enough to face it now. You're right, I whispered. I'm sorry. The anger in Ethan's face melted into something softer. He crossed the room, knelt beside me, and took my hands in his much larger ones. Don't apologize for loving us. The words broke me. Tears I'd held back for days spilled freely. My boys. My men. The reason I kept going even when I had nothing left to give. What happens now? Caleb asked quietly. I wiped my cheeks and straightened my shoulders. Now, you decide. Whatever you choose, I'll respect it. Even if we choose her? Noah asked. The question pierced deeper than any knife. But I forced myself to meet his gaze. Even then. Because love isn't about possession. It's about what's best for you, even if it destroys me in the process. They didn't answer right away. They rose and filed into their shared bedroom, the one where I had somehow fit 3 twin beds and 17 years of life. I sat alone, listening through the thin walls as their voices murmured low and serious. Boys becoming men in a single conversation. My phone buzzed on the table. A message. From Melissa. The boys seemed upset when I dropped them off. I hope you're not poisoning them against me. We need to talk before their decision. Meet me tomorrow at 2, Rosewood Cafe. I stared at the message for a long time. My hands went still. Rosewood Cafe. Her old hangout when she was 16, back when she still called me Mom. I typed back one word, yes. Then I set the phone aside and began planning what would be my daughter's final lesson in consequences. The next afternoon, I walked into Rosewood Cafe with my heart hammering in my chest. It had been nearly 2 decades since I'd stepped inside. The place hadn't changed much, same chipped tables, same old jukebox in the corner that hadn't worked since 1995, same smell of roasted beans and nostalgia. And there she was. Melissa. She wore a crisp white blouse, diamond earrings that glinted under the cafe lights, and an expensive handbag perched on the chair beside her. She looked like a woman who'd finally made it. But all I saw was the girl who had slammed a bedroom door in my face at 16, the girl who had left her babies swaddled on my couch and never turned back. Mom, she said smoothly, standing to kiss my cheek as though we were long-lost friends. I froze. That word, Mom, burned on my skin. Melissa, I replied coldly, sitting opposite her. She smiled, too polished, too rehearsed. You look well. Tired, of course, but well. Raising 3 boys isn't easy at your age. I clenched my jaw. You wouldn't know. Her smile faltered for a split second before she composed herself. I came to make peace. We don't need to fight. I've built a good life and I want to share it with my sons. With your grandsons. I leaned forward, my voice sharp. They're not just my grandsons. They're my sons in every way that matters. Melissa sighed dramatically, like I was a stubborn child. Look, we can go back and forth all day. But the court already agreed. I'm their mother. Legally. Biologically. And soon financially too. There it was. The slip. Financially? I asked, my tone like ice. Her eyes flickered, too quick, but I caught it. You don't need to pretend, I continued, lowering my voice. You filed for guardianship the moment you learned about David's insurance policy. Melissa's expression hardened. She leaned in close, her perfume sharp and cloying. Don't you dare lecture me about what I deserve, she hissed. Do you have any idea what I went through after he died? I was 21 with no future. I did what I had to do to survive. Now I want what's mine. What's yours? I repeated, my voice trembling with fury. You left those boys hungry and crying in their cribs while you chased men in bars. I found Ethan screaming with a soaked diaper that hadn't been changed in hours. I found Caleb with a rash so bad it bled. I took Noah to the hospital when you didn't even notice his fever was climbing past 104. And now you dare sit here and talk about what's yours? Melissa's eyes flashed, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she leaned back, crossed her arms, and smirked. The law is on my side. Blood is on my side. You can rant all you want, but when that money hits, it won't be in your account. It'll be in mine. And if you play nice, maybe I'll let you see them once in a while. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The audacity. The cruelty. But then, slowly, I smiled. Because Melissa didn't know what I had. I reached into my purse and slid a small stack of papers across the table. Her smirk faltered. What's this? Evidence, I said calmly. Proof of neglect. Police reports from when the neighbors called about the boys crying all night. Hospital records showing your name listed as unable to be contacted. Witness statements. And more importantly, I tapped the last page. A signed statement from your own mother. My testimony. Sworn and notarized. Melissa's hand twitched as she flipped through the pages, her confidence crumbling with each line. You wouldn't, she stammered. Oh, I would. I leaned in, my voice low but razor-sharp. If you push me, if you dare drag this into court again, I'll show the judge exactly who you are. And trust me, Melissa, no amount of money or diamonds will make a judge hand 3 nearly grown boys back to the woman who abandoned them. Her face drained of color. For the first time, she looked like the child I remembered, small, cornered, desperate. But then, like a snake, she recovered. Her lips curved into a smile so cold it froze me in place. You think you've won, don't you? She whispered. But those boys are curious. They're angry. And I have 2 weeks to remind them who their real mother is. You can wave your papers all you want, but in the end, blood always wins. She stood, gathering her bag. Enjoy your little victory, Mom. Because when they choose me, and they will, you'll be nothing but a sad old woman who raised children that were never hers. With that, she swept out of the cafe, leaving me trembling, my hands clenched so tightly my nails cut into my palms. For a long moment, I just sat there, staring at the papers, at the door she'd walked through, at the ghost of the daughter I once loved. And then my phone buzzed. It was Ethan. Grandma. We need to talk. Something happened after you left. My blood ran cold. I grabbed my bag, shoved the papers back inside, and rushed for the door. Whatever Melissa had set in motion during those hours I was gone, it was already working. When I got home from the cafe, the house was too quiet. Usually, Noah would be strumming his guitar in the living room, Ethan would be hunched over his laptop, and Caleb would be raiding the fridge. That day, though, the silence was heavy, unnatural. I found them in the dining room. All 3 boys sat together, their faces tight, serious, like they'd been waiting for me. Grandma, Ethan said, his tone clipped. We need answers. My chest tightened. What happened? Caleb shoved a folded letter across the table. She came by. While you were gone. My blood ran cold. I opened the paper with trembling hands. It wasn't a letter, it was a bank statement. Melissa's name, bold at the top. And under it, a line that made my stomach flip. Trust fund beneficiary change, pending approval. I looked up at them. Where did you get this? She showed us, Noah said softly, his eyes downcast. She told us Dad left money. A lot of it. Enough for college. Enough for a future. She said you kept it from us. The air left my lungs. That's not true. I never. She said you planned to use it for yourself, Ethan interrupted, his voice sharp. That you kept us in this old house, working part-time jobs, while you've been sitting on Dad's money for years. I slammed my hand on the table. That's a lie. The boys flinched. I'd never raised my voice at them like that. I forced myself to breathe. Listen to me. Your father did leave money. But it wasn't released until last year. And it was never mine, it was set aside for you. For all 3 of you. Every cent is for your future. College. Stability. Security. Noah's eyes flicked to Caleb, uncertain. Caleb looked away. Ethan, though, Ethan's jaw clenched tighter. She said you forged papers. That you tricked the courts to keep us. The words hit like knives. That woman abandoned you. I snapped. I fed you, bathed you, sat up with you when you were sick. I worked 2 jobs to keep the lights on. Everything I did for you. And now you think I'd, what? Steal from you? Ethan slammed his fist on the table, echoing my earlier anger. Why didn't you tell us sooner, then? Why did it take her showing up for us to even know there was money? Silence stretched between us. Because he wasn't wrong. I hadn't told them. Not because I wanted to hide it, but because I was afraid. Afraid the money would change things, afraid it would make them see Melissa not as the woman who left, but as the mother tied to that inheritance. And now, it was happening. She said she can give us opportunities you can't, Caleb said quietly. She's different now. She has a house, a job, connections. Maybe. Maybe what? My voice cracked. Maybe she cares now? Maybe she changed? Boys, people don't just change overnight. She didn't come back for you, she came back for the money. And she's using it to turn you against me. Ethan pushed his chair back and stood. His face was pale, his hands shaking, but his voice was steel. You raised us, Grandma. And I'll never forget that. But if she's our mother, we at least deserve to know her side. The words broke something in me. Noah's lip trembled, and he whispered, "We just want the truth." I sank into the nearest chair, my strength draining out of me. The truth, I said bitterly, is that the woman you're calling your mother left you to die while she chased her own life. But fine. I grabbed the folder from my purse, the same one I had shown Melissa at the cafe, and slammed it on the table. Read it. Every report. Every hospital record. Every witness statement. Read what she did. Read what I cleaned up after. The boys stared at the folder like it was a live bomb. Ethan hesitated, then reached for it. His hands shook as he opened the first page. Caleb leaned over his shoulder. Noah, wide-eyed, moved closer. As their eyes scanned the words, I saw their faces change. Shock. Confusion. Anger. Until Ethan slammed it shut. This doesn't prove anything, he snapped, though his voice wavered. It's just paper. People make mistakes. She said you'd twist the story. Tears burned my eyes. Twist the story? Ethan, she left bruises. She left scars. She left you. Noah burst out suddenly, "Stop it. Stop fighting. Please." His voice cracked, and he shoved away from the table, tears streaming down his face as he ran to his room. Caleb followed quickly, muttering, "I need to think." And then it was just me and Ethan. He stared at me, torn, furious, heartbroken. "You might be right, Grandma," he said quietly. "But if you're wrong, then I've hated the wrong person my whole life." And with that, he turned and walked out the door. I sat there in the silence of the dining room, the folder of proof still lying on the table, my heart shattering into pieces I wasn't sure could ever be put back together. Melissa hadn't just cracked our family. She had set it on fire. And for the first time in years, I felt a flicker of doubt. What if blood really did win? The courtroom smelled of old wood and fresh coffee. I sat at the plaintiff's table, my palms damp against the polished surface. My lawyer whispered something about strategy, but my eyes were locked on one thing, my grandsons, seated just a few feet away. Noah's hands twisted nervously in his lap. Caleb sat stiff, avoiding my eyes. And Ethan. Ethan sat closest to Melissa, his jaw set, his body angled toward her like she was a shield. Melissa looked radiant. That's the word for it, radiant, smug in her navy dress and pearl earrings, as if she hadn't been gone a decade. As if she hadn't left bruises and empty cupboards behind. She caught my eye and smirked. And for the first time, I wondered if she might win. The judge entered, and the room rose. My knees shook as I stood. When we sat, the proceedings began. Melissa's lawyer went first. He painted her as a changed woman, stable, employed, financially secure. He said she had overcome her past mistakes and wanted nothing more than to reconnect with her sons. He used words like redemption and maternal bond and second chances. And then he pointed at me. He described me as controlling. As someone who kept secrets. He said I had hidden the trust fund, used manipulation to keep the boys dependent on me. He said I deprived them of their mother's love. Each word cut deeper. When it was our turn, my lawyer presented the records. Hospital reports. Police statements. Witness accounts. The very papers I had slammed onto my dining table just days before. The boys shifted uncomfortably as photos were displayed, pictures of bruises on tiny arms, a broken wrist that doctors had documented as suspected child abuse. Melissa didn't flinch. Not once. And when the judge asked her directly, she pressed a tissue to her cheek and whispered, "I was sick. I was young. I didn't know better. But I've changed. They're my sons. Don't I deserve a chance to prove that?" The courtroom was silent. The judge leaned back. "Before I make a ruling, I want to hear from the boys themselves." My heart stopped. One by one, they were called forward. Noah went first. His voice shook. "Grandma raised us. She was always there. But I don't know Mom. And I want to. I think I should have that chance." My chest caved in. Caleb followed. He avoided my gaze as he said, "I don't remember much from when I was little. But people can change, right? I think she deserves a chance." And then Ethan. He stood tall, his voice steady. "She's our mother. She gave us life. And Grandma, she kept things from us. If she trusted us, she would have told us about Dad's money. I don't know what to believe anymore. But I know I can't keep living without answers. I choose Mom." 3 arrows through my chest. The judge nodded, scribbling notes. "And then, Mrs. Evelyn Carter, would you like to make a statement before I decide?" I stood, my legs trembling. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Then I turned, not to the judge, but to my grandsons. "My boys," I whispered, and my voice echoed in the quiet courtroom. "I won't beg. I won't smear her name. You've read the reports. You've seen the truth. But let me tell you something those papers can't show." I swallowed, my throat raw. "I was there. Every night when you cried for a mother who never came. I was there when Noah had a fever so high I thought I'd lose him. I was there when Caleb's wrist healed, and when Ethan swore he'd never let anyone hurt his brothers again. I was there. Not because I had to be. Because I chose to be. Every single day." Tears blurred my vision. Blood doesn't make a family. Love does. Choice does. And if you walk out of here today and choose her, my voice cracked, then I'll still be here tomorrow. Because that's what family does. It stays. Silence blanketed the room. Melissa shifted uncomfortably, her face tight. For the first time, she looked nervous. The judge cleared his throat. "Thank you, Mrs. Carter." After reviewing all evidence and testimony, he glanced at the boys. "And considering the children's wishes, my decision is as follows: legal custody remains with Evelyn Carter. Melissa Carter is granted supervised visitation rights, to be expanded only upon further review." Melissa's face went white. The gavel came down. The courtroom erupted, lawyers packing up, spectators whispering. Melissa stood abruptly, fury flashing across her face. She grabbed Ethan's arm, but he yanked it away, his eyes wide with something I hadn't seen before. Doubt. "Don't touch me," he muttered. She froze. Noah and Caleb moved to my side, their expressions conflicted but leaning toward me. Ethan lingered, torn, his fists clenched. I whispered, "Take your time, Ethan. I'm not going anywhere." And then I walked out of that courtroom, my grandsons at my side, my heart battered but still beating. Melissa stayed behind, her mask cracking at last, realizing she hadn't just lost a case. She was losing the one thing she thought blood could buy back. Her children's trust. And that, dear listeners, was the story of a grandmother's fight for the family she built. Tell me, do you think Evelyn did the right thing by keeping the trust fund secret until the time was right? Or should the boys have chosen their mother, no matter her past? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.